Ever since their inception, zombie movies have often been used as a way to comment on modern times, dissecting the disintegration of society in Night of the Living Dead, criticizing consumerism in Dawn of the Dead, or the standard go-to of what people will do in order to get and remain in power. In most cases, zombie films and other media have held a mirror up to the world to examine the worst tendencies of humanity within these stories of the brain-eating dead. But what happens when the real world already feels like a horror story as it is? Is there a need for this type of introspection through film when we can clearly see the flaws in our own reality? The answer, via the fantastic 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, is to highlight the hope, care, and compassion that will save humanity. With a surprisingly optimistic script by Alex Garland and Nia DaCosta directing this sequel to Danny Boyle's 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple finds warmth and empathy in the darkest of places and emphasizes how these unexpected ideas could truly save the world. It's a welcome change to the zombie genre that makes this one of the first great films of 2026. The Bone Temple picks up right where 28 Years Later left off. When we last saw Spike, he was being taken under the wing of Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, the leader of a gang known as the Jimmies, who wear tracksuits, blonde wigs, and are fascinated by the Teletubbies. While 28 Years Later's conclusion introducing this group came off silly then, it doesn't take long for the sequel to emphasize just how depraved the Jimmies actually are. After being forced to fight another member of the gang to the death, Alfie is brought into this self-proclaimed cult of maniacs and murderers. However, while Lord Jimmy makes wild claims, one of the members of this gang, Jimmy Inc., is starting to question the validity of their leader. Meanwhile, Dr. Ian Kelson has made some groundbreaking discoveries in his interactions with the infected's alpha leader, known as Samson, who keeps returning to the doctor's bone temple despite being shot with morphine darts. Kelson realizes that Samson finds comfort in their meetings and uses this opportunity to unearth his own answers about the infected. As Kelson and Samson build an unexpected friendship, it seems like there might finally be more to the infected than unrelenting rage and violence. 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple shows the importance of compassion, even at the end of the world. DaCosta and Garland are wise to start The Bone Temple off with the Jimmies, illustrating the absolute lack of humanity that exists in this monstrous and cruel world. The gang brutally attacks and tortures anyone they encounter, referring to their actions as charity, despite treating it like a big game. Zombie and horror films have often shown the lengths to which people will go after the world has gone to hell, but rarely is it as sadistic and horrifying as it is in The Bone Temple. This is brutality for the sake of brutality, to the point that Spike's inability to watch these actions without looking away or vomiting leads the Jimmies to treat him like the true outsider. In revealing how far the world has fallen, however, DaCosta and Garland show just how important the smallest moments of kindness are. At one point, during one of these moments of charity, Jimmy Inc. takes pity on Spike, and it's clear this isn't an emotion she's felt in a long time. This undercurrent of compassion especially holds true for Kelson and Samson, which creates a wonderfully charming dynamic between the two. In a genre where care and empathy can be perceived as a weakness, The Bone Temple never treats it as such. We automatically expect Samson to retaliate against the doctor's actions, yet Kelson's kindness is accepted and rewarded. Somehow, this movie makes a friendship between a man and a giant, naked, infected man truly moving, and it's magnificent to see how the story subverts the zombie genre in unexpected ways. With The Bone Temple, Nia DaCosta and Alex Garland offer a clever take on the zombie horror story. With 2002's 28 Days Later, Garland and Boyle created a stark take on the zombie film that ultimately wielded a more personal touch with its characters than one would expect. For decades, viewers wondered if these two would reunite to continue the story, and it's great that they waited as long as they did, as it's clear both Boyle and Garland have grown quite a bit as storytellers in the time between 28 Days Later and 28 Years Later. In 28 Years Later, Garland certainly pursued a more tender approach by following Spike and his family. The passing of Jodie Comer's Isla could have been written off as just another casualty in a world where these types of tragedies are expected. Instead, Garland's writing ensured that this individual loss would still leave an impact while also somehow turning a giant tower of skulls into a deeply moving testament to great world-ending loss. With the Bone Temple, Garland ensures that we never forget that both infected and uninfected alike are human beings. The necessary infusion of humanity for this nightmarish world leads to some of the most beautiful moments in this entire franchise and in recent horror films in general, resulting in a stunning recontextualization of the zombie genre. This is all gorgeously brought to life by DaCosta in her finest film to date. While Boyle's directing in 28 Years Later was more frantic and drew attention to itself, particularly via the moments shot on iPhones, DaCosta takes a steadier approach, letting the viewer sit with the horrors on display as well as quieter moments of beauty. She'll focus on a person bleeding out for longer than we'd like to make us really feel the impact, or she'll allow us to simply be present for a nice moment of connection between Dr. Kelson and Samson. But when the film does ask for frenetic, wild excitement, particularly in the third act, DaCosta knows exactly how to enliven such scenes. She might have initially seemed like a wild card in this creative equation, especially since 28 Weeks Later proved that veering outside the Boyle-Garland collaboration could lead to disappointment. But DaCosta is an incredible addition to this universe, who knows just the right energy this story needs. While this is very much a direct sequel to 28 Years Later, DaCosta and her team bring their own energy to this follow-up. There's superb cinematography from Sean Bobbitt, who previously received an Oscar nomination for his work on Judas and the Black Messiah, collaborated with Steve McQueen on most of his films, and has worked with DaCosta on her last two films. Through his camera, Bobbitt knows how to equally present the light and the darkness, and it's maybe the best-looking film in this series thus far. The Bone Temple also features music by Oscar-winning composer Hildur Gudnadóttir, and while it's not as in-your-face as the great Young Fathers score from 28 Years Later, it sets just the right tone that simmers underneath the story, plunging you into a world of unease and uncertainty. Ralph Fiennes and Jack O'Connell play opposite ends of the spectrum in The Bone Temple.
It would be hard to showcase the film's understanding and care without some excellent performances, and The Bone Temple boasts them on both ends of its spectrum. Ralph Fiennes is a delight as Dr. Kelson, a man who has clearly seen horrible things yet hasn't given up hope for mercy. Continuing from 28 Years Later, Fiennes plays Kelson with warmth and love, even though he's always surrounded by the countless bones of the deceased. Fiennes is clearly having a blast, whether Kelson is working in his bunker, well-stocked with vinyl records by Duran Duran and Radiohead, or putting on an incredible show near the end of the film. This is a perfect role for Fiennes, which allows him to exhibit just how playful, charming, and terrifying he can be, depending on what the scene calls for. Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal is a role that could have easily been over the top and lost all of its dread, but Jack O'Connell ensures that never happens. He's unpredictable, yet deliberate in how he manipulates his crew, which is also frightening. This is a character who is supposed to lack humanity, but Garland still gives us just enough of who this person is and was that makes him almost sympathetic, despite what we've seen him do. Even though he doesn't have quite as much to do this time around, Alfie Williams' Spike remains the heart of this story, and his relationship with Erin Kellyman's Jimmy Inc. is another pleasant surprise. But maybe the most unexpected standout of the Bone Temple is Chi Lewis Perry, who has to depict Samson's internal monologue and slow, subtle evolution, all while remaining infected by the rage virus. It's a wonderfully handled performance that leads to some of the film's most moving scenes. Only 2 weeks in, Nia DaCosta and Alex Garland have set the bar high with what could easily be the best horror film of 2026, taking a genre that we've seen time and time again and breathing new life into it by focusing on the goodness and charity within humanity right until the film's very last frame. 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple is a stunning movie that continues to solidify the franchise's legacy as one of the best zombie stories to ever hit theaters. 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple comes to theaters on January 16th.